Hi, I'm Joe Paczkowski. I'm a graphic designer, and I'd like to welcome you to this introduction to my work and my background. If you're at all familiar with my work, you know that a lot of what I do is inspired by the Baha'i teachings. If you're unfamiliar with that, I'd briefly like to explain that Baha'is believe in the unity of God, the unity of mankind. We strive for harmony and cooperation, prosperity amongst all the races, nations, religions, and peoples of the world. So in this video, I'd like to talk a little bit about my background and how I've approached graphic design. I'd like to explain a little bit what digital graphics are to those of you who aren't familiar with it, and then I'll get into my methods in madness. I'm American. I'm from the Boston area, particularly Somerville before it was trendy. I was born in 1956. I'm married and have one amazing son. In 1979, at the age of 22, I moved to Finland. Not long after arriving, I started studying wood carving and furniture making for 3 years. When I finished school, I got a job in a small advertising company and have been in this field ever since. 32 years ago, I moved to Kuopio, Finland, shown on the map. It's a beautiful little town, and it was around that time that I just thought it would be really good to go back to school to study graphic design. Digital graphic design specifically. It was quite a new field, and at that time it quickly became apparent that there were very few schools anywhere teaching it, and there were none in Finland. So I bought a computer and started studying it in my free time. So for the past 27 years, I've been working for a small company here in Kuopio that designs and constructs exhibition stands for trade fairs, congresses, and things. But this being a small town, we only have those things a few times a year. So in the meantime, we do vehicle graphics, signs, printing, displays, logos. I like my work. It's a great field to be in. My workmates are great. However, about 6 years ago, I started to feel that there were some creative limitations, and that when you're working commercially, everything you do is according to the client's needs, and everything you do is subject to client approval naturally. But I began to wish that I could do anything I wanted. And then I realized, well, of course, I can do anything I want in my free time. But then when I actually tried to do things, I felt like stuck. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to begin to unlock this creative block that I had got myself into. So that was an interesting struggle, and I'd like to tell a little bit of how I overcame that. I've been working doing commercial graphics for about over 35 years. And in that time, I've done some things in my free time, but at some point I began to gradually less and less do things just for self-expression. I was doing posters and things for friends or events when needed, but I hadn't done anything really just creatively. So I'm not exactly sure when it was, maybe about 10 years ago, I had a dream, and in the dream I was being led through this vast gallery with these really large, beautiful graphic pictures suspended in the air, and they were very impressive. They were very unusual style. I couldn't really quite tell what style they were. And after a while, I asked my guide, "What are these pictures?" And he said, "These are the pictures you never did." I was like horrified. I immediately sat up in bed, wide awake, thinking, what was that? And it wasn't actually very inspiring. In fact, it was very daunting. I felt like I'd blew my chance. I'd wasted my life. And I never could forget it. and hopefully I've made up for things by now. So about 6 years ago, I started to look at graphic applications for the iPad. I had gotten an iPad to read emails and ebooks and things like that, but when I heard there were graphic applications for the iPad, I got curious and started to look into some of them. The one that I liked the best was called Procreate. So I started to play with it, and it didn't take too long to get familiar with the interface and how it worked, and I just began to doodle with it and play around. I didn't have to show anybody. I didn't have to make it for anybody. I could just sort of just fool around and have fun, and I did. After a while, I began to realize that actually it can be a serious tool of artistic expression, and I realized at some point that, well, I'm a graphic designer. I can go back to the computer and explore further what the possibilities are, and I think that's what I did. So all the work you've seen me share on social media are things I've done in my free time. They're done for no particular reason. They're rather whimsical in that I sit down and I just explore different styles, different ornamentations. I've always been fascinated with traditional arts from India, China, Islam, Europe, and we live in a unique time where all the styles, all the things are at your fingertips over the internet. You can find anything, and even with tutorial resources on things like YouTube, you can pretty much learn whatever you set your heart to and mind to. So that's sort of how I began to get started. So what are digital graphics? Basically, digital graphics are images of videos written in code that can be saved on a computer system. You can send them, retrieve them, you can share them on social media. There are two types, bitmaps and vectors. You're probably more familiar with bitmaps because that's what you will have if you take a picture with your digital camera or smartphone. Vectors are something totally different. They're made up of points connected by lines creating shapes. And with those shapes in a multitude of ways, you can create complicated images. I'll give an example of these in a minute. Here we are in Photoshop looking at a bitmap image. Now the bitmap image is made up of pixels, so if we zoom in deep enough to the image, you will begin to see all the little boxes. These are called pixels, and each pixel has its own color value, and that's what makes up the image. The more pixels they are, the higher resolution. It's called higher resolution, and that means the image can be sharper, but it becomes a bigger file size. So the disadvantage of sometimes digital images are if you zoom in too much, or if you enlarge it too much, and you begin to see the pixels, and that can be a problem. It doesn't look very good. Vector images, as I said before, are made up of points connected by lines. These lines form shapes. The shapes can be given a color fill. They can be rotated. They can be copied. You can zoom into them literally infinitely, and you will never see pixels. They will always be sharp. So as you see, this is a black outline. You can take away the outline, you can add an outline, you can take away the fill. So the lines can be straight or curved. So with this basic system, you can build rather complicated things. And we'll go into that a little more in a while. Keep in mind that digital graphics are just another medium, like paints or pencils or pastels or anything. It's just another means of self-expression. It has its advantages or disadvantages, but it's not any more valuable or less valuable than any other technique. One of the challenges of digital graphics is before you can really do anything, you have to learn the interface of how the tools work, how the program works, how it's set up, and how you can get it to do what you want to do. In the beginning, this can slow you down because until you actually know how to use it, you're not going to be able to do anything really. But once you master that, and it becomes sort of unconscious where you're just using it and you don't have to think about how you're doing it, you're just doing it, that's when things can take off. But be patient because that takes time and practice and time. Now I'd like to show more specifically about how I make my pictures. I'd like to do it as concisely as possible, so in this video I'm not going to explain every purpose of every step. I'm just going to do it, otherwise this video would take forever. And I know some of you may be more interested in specific tutorials, and we can do that in the future. If you leave comments for me, I would sort of like know what you want to know. But for now, I'd like to just keep it short and sweet. I'd like to do a demonstration of how I draw a 9-pointed star. I'm in CorelDRAW, and I'm going to try to make something that you can watch in real time, and I'll explain what I'm doing as I go along. It won't be a thorough explanation, but we could probably in a future video, for those interested, do something in more detail. So let's start with just making a line. That's a straight line, but I think it would be more interesting if it was a curved line. So let's make it a curved line. And we'll make it something like that, perhaps. Now I'm gonna copy it across the x-axis. Now I'd like to rotate this. Now in a circle has 360 degrees, and if I want to make it 9-pointed star, I have to divide it 9 times, so that leaves me with 40 degrees increments. So I want to rotate this 40 degrees. Now if I select it to rotate, you see the center point. It will rotate around its own center by default. And I don't want it to do that. I want it to rotate around the center of the page. Now to get it 40 degrees, if you look up here to show the angle, it would be very difficult to get it exactly 40 degrees doing it this way. So I'm going to undo that. And I'm going to use this panel here, which I've set to 40 degrees. And I'm going to make one copy and leave the original. So now when I click apply, you see it's left the original, but it rotated it 40 degrees. And I'm going to do it again to this one. So I keep doing this. And there, it's done it 9 times. So I have a shape that looks like it's something like I think I could work with. You notice that these go over because when I started it, I had no idea where the lines would meet. But now I know. So what I'd like to do is make all the lines end there. So I'm going to take the first original line that I had selected, this one. And I'm going to add a point right here. I'm going to select the line, and as you see, I think I can guess that that's probably where it should end. So I'm going to delete this point. And now I need to redo everything I just did with just that line. So I'm going to select everything else, select everything, and delete everything else except that one line. Now I'm going to copy it again. I'm going to combine these lines now, and I have to put it back to rotate around the center and do it again and see if that worked. Yep, so I'm happy with that. All the lines have rotated around that center point, and they've all met up there. So what I'm going to do is I have 9 separate lines, and I'm going to combine this into one object. Now if I do that, I know that all these lines, all these corners are open, that they're 2 separate points, and I need to combine them to be one. So I'm going to quickly go through and do that. I have to do each individual. There's no shortcut for this. Keep in mind that this is my method. This isn't the only way to draw something like this. In fact, a lot of graphic programs already have ways to draw. For example, it already has a tool for drawing polygons, and you can set how many sides it has. So it can be 6, you can make it 9, and then you can manipulate it like that. And I don't really like this tool very much. I use it sometimes, but I'd prefer to make my own. I'm lazy, but not that lazy. So now I have a shape that I can begin to work with. Now, I'd kind of make out of this a ribbon that weaves in and out of itself. So I need to make a copy of this. Now, if I kind of just reduce the size of this, make a copy and reduce the size, this side, these sides are bigger than this side because it's not going according to the center. It's going to its own center, but not the center of the page, and that's because this center of this is not on the center of the page because it's not symmetrical on the y-axis. It's symmetrical on the x-axis. So I would like it to, when I scale it, to go along the sides. So I'm going to make a square, and I'm going to center that to the page. It has to be bigger, the thing. Now I'm going to make a copy of this by hitting plus. So now there's 2 of them. They're on top of each other. Now when I select this box, which is centered with the page, and I reduce the size of the 9-pointed star, it's going to reduce from the center. And I'm going to do something like that. So there you go. Oops, deleted too much. So this is something. What did I do? Okay. Now this is something I can begin to work with. You see how it overlaps itself. And notice that if I follow this shape, it's weaving around the whole star. And now it's sort of like become one line that will go forever around itself. And now I could fill these in so that it goes under and over that. But I'd kind of like to make it a little more complicated. So I'm going to group all this and start again with another line to weave also in and out. So I'm going to do this again. I'm going to make another line so I can have 2 lines weaving in and out of each other, because the first one wasn't complicated enough. Let's move this line a little in. This is really how it goes. It's sort of trial and error. So I have to again do the same thing to find this. So I want this to rotate around the center of the page, so I'm going to move the center down there, and I'm going to hit apply. And I see that they should end here. So this was my original line right here. Let's make it a different color so you can see it easy. Now what I have to do is I know I want it to end here. So I'm going to take this line and I'm going to add a point there in the middle of that. I'm going to get rid of that. Now I'm going to copy that. I'm going to delete all this mess and leave that original thing, and now I'm going to put it back. Kind of copy it, and this time I'm going to combine them. Combine the 2 points there, and put the center back to the center of the page. Let's make sure it's accurate, and do it again. There we go. So I should have 9 objects selected. I'm going to combine them. I have to again combine all these points down here. Okay. All right. So I want to copy that and put that to the center of the page. Make it a little bigger, and then copy it. Did I do it? And I'll make it a little smaller. Okay. So now I have two lines weaving it out. So I'm going to give this a fill so you can see better what it is. So let's combine these. And combine these. I did. Okay, now this checker effect is something that will go away when we create when I show you how I'm going to weave these in and out of each other. So this is our beginning. So I'm going to take away all the fills and give this a light color. Now it looks like a mess, but we'll figure this out. So now I'll show you how to weave them in and out of each other. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to use this Smart Fill tool. I'm going to make this a light gray. And I'm going to just select a space so it automatically fills in this space. So this is going to go over this line. Every time it crosses a line, it has to go over and under. So that's how I find the shapes. I'm going to weld these together so it's one shape. Now, so it goes under this line, and then I'm going to have it go over this line. I'm going to weld these together. Then I'm going to do it again. Under, over. This is a faster way of doing this than trying to draw all the lines again. So it goes under, over. So it has to come to here, or to, this is the equivalent of this, so I have to keep going. under, over. And weld, and I think to here. Okay. Now I only have to do 1/9 of this. So there we go. So now I can group these, and I'd like to give a fill here that would be like to show a little bit of the shading. I'd like to make it, yeah, something like that. Now when I rotate this 9 times, I'm going to just, you can see that it's gone nicely under and over. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the inside line. So I'm going to use it. This time I'm going to give it a different color so we can distinguish them. Let's make it sort of something like that maybe. So this obviously is going over this line. And this is going obviously under, over. I'm welding these shapes together. When I first started to do this, I would kind of get lost in these shapes going under and over, but I've done this before, so I have trust. And if I just keep to the principle of going over and under, I will eventually get there. I just have to know when to stop doing it. Oh, there's a funny line. I don't need these lines. Oh, I deleted too much. This is caused by the welding, but let's just make that a line. Okay. So, yeah. So, I think I'm there. Let's see, I'm not sure. I think I might be there. Let's test it. If I'm not there, it'll be a blank space. No, it did it. Yeah. Let's go back a bit and do the shading like I did for that, so I can see sort of how it's going under. That way, kind of see the shadows like it would naturally go under. So let's apply that again. Yeah, so there it is. Now, up until now, I haven't been concerned with the colors. I don't really think about the colors much until I get the shape as I want. And now I am at a point where I can begin to think about the final colors. And many times I change in my mind and will often make several versions with different colors before I decide what I'm finally going to do. So let's take this outer circle that's gray, and I'm going to group them together. And let's just forget the shading and just make it a dark blue. And we'll take the inner band and group that together. The reason to group them, obviously, is then when you change the colors you don't have to change the colors of each individual anymore. It's a little faster to work with. Let's just for a moment make it a lighter blue. Now I'm going to take everything, and as you see now at the moment they have a black outline, all the shapes, and I'm going to change that to a gold outline. I'm going to make the outline a little thicker. It'll help emphasize this weaving pattern as I've taken the shading away. And I'm going to make it, that's a little bit more. Let's see how that looks. Okay, so on a white background, I see this, but if I give it a black background, it sort of pops out more, but the blue is rather dark. So I'm going to take that away for a moment and just work with the white background. So to start, I'm going to start to fill the areas, the white areas, and I'm going to, for example, take this shape and let's make it I kind of like to give it some shading. So I'm going to bring this down and make this, for example, a little darker, to give it some depth. Okay. Now I'd like to copy that all the way around. So as you're probably familiar, I'm going to drag this down now to the center of the page. And instead of doing it one at a time like I did it before, I'm just going to give this as a value of 8. So there's 1 now, and I'm going to make 8 copies. That'll be 9, and it'll be 40 degrees around the center. So with just one click, it'll do that. Now let's come to the next, and let's fill that. And we're going to move it to the back. Let's make it red, a darker red. Okay, I'm going to take that and I'm going to put that around. You see what happened? This is because I didn't accurately put it in the center. So I'm going to undo that and fix that. Now I'll do it again and it should go well. One thing I should do now that will save me trouble later is to take all these parts and group them, because otherwise I'm going to end up with a very difficult picture to manage later. So now I see I'm going to work my way in, and I'd like this color to have some contrast. The next place we're going to go is here, and I'm going to make it, for example, orange, and I'd like to give it also a little shading like I did the yellow. So I'm going to take this color, I'm going to pick a dark, and now I'm going to make it, move it a little bit, adjust it so it's kind of subtle but not over dominating. Maybe a little that's enough. Now I've got to move this to the center. And now I don't know if I remembered to group these. I did. So I'm going to group these again like I did the others. And now I'm going to move here. So I have a 3-color combination now, yellow, orange, red, and I think I'm going to stick with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to take these two, because if I just did one, it would go every other one. So I'm going to copy the color properties from the yellow. You see? And rotate it around the center. And I'm going to apply. Now I'd like to group them. One more. And now come to here. So this is in the middle. I don't need two of them. I want to copy the color properties from here. But now it's going the wrong way. I want it to go from the inside. And I'm gonna... Is that good? Rotate it around the center. Group them.
Joe?
And there. Okay, let's continue. So the next area is this, and we're going to copy the color from here this way because it's not a gradation. I can just copy the single color. There we go. I'm grouping them again. I know it's slow, but I want to show you in real time. You also can gauge how long it would take to make one of these. And these will be yellow. So I'm going to copy the colors from here. And that's good. Apply. Select every other one to get all 9 of them. And is it this? Yes. So now we're getting here. Now let's see, this one should be red because this is orange. So I can just copy the color this way. I'll show you what happens if I'm not exactly in the center and I try to copy it. They go off. And that's why it's important to make sure you are definitely in the center. It doesn't always snap as it's supposed to, so the advantage of working digitally is this possibility of this kind of accuracy that's hard to achieve with paper. So I want to copy the color properties from the orange. Again, it goes the wrong way. And let's bring it to here. I don't think yeah. So I want to group them. One more. Did I group the red? I did. That's how long my memory is. So now I have to figure out what to do with the center. And obviously I don't want to leave it blank. Let's just try something like this. I'll make a box. It's not in the center. And I make these lines a little curved because they're a little strange to be so straight. Okay. I don't know if they smoothly blend with these very well. Let's copy the properties from the blue line. Well, okay, let's just take a test and see what that would look like if I rotated it. That would kind of give the illusion that the lines go straight through the center. I think I would like that. But I'm not going to be able to overlap them like I did these. But I think they'll be so small in the middle that nobody will probably notice. So I'm going to take these and I want to select just these lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and I have 7, 8, 9. Okay, I'm going to change the color just momentarily to see what I'm missing. Okay, I'm missing this one. I'm going to weld them together. Now it's one shape. Now what I'm going to try to do, if it works, is I'm going to weld it to this line so that won't you have that gap there like that. So if I hit weld, yeah, so now it went really nicely. So let's continue the coloring process. So I guess this should be yellow. So copy the properties from here. And now I think I want to maybe that. Apply. It's off. See? It's off. Let's put it back in the center. Put it in the center where it's supposed to be. And it would be unfortunate if I didn't notice and I continued to work on it, and then later on in a further process when it would be harder to fix, I notice. I wouldn't be too thrilled about that, but that happens. You have to go back and undo it and start from where you made your mistake. So think this will be red. And off again. I must be getting tired or lazy. Okay. Okay, I selected the blue. This is a very small shape, but it's there. But what color should it be? What if it was dark blue? Have to zoom in to select them correctly. And I think one more. Down here it's showing me how many objects I have selected. That's how I know when I have the 9. So let's just take this shape. And if we make it yellow. And let's take our polygon tool. What if I made that blue? I want the same outline. So there. And now we'll make it, copy it, and bring it in, and then copy the colors from here. Okay. So what else can we do with it? Is this video already too long? I just like to, I would never really leave it like this. I would maybe add, okay, let's take some, to save time, let's take some common shapes. Let's take, for example, the heart shape. And let's put a white heart here. And let's give it a gold outline. Before I do this, actually, yeah, I'm going to copy this because I'm going to delete it before I go any further, but I'm going to group this now so that it's a little bit easier to work with the inside things. I could make it on another layer, but I don't want to show you layers now. We'll go into all this stuff in more tutorials later if you like. So I'm going to paste that back what I had. I'm going to make it up, put it upside down. And I'd also like this to have a gold outline, but it doesn't need to be as thick as the others because this is just an ornamentation. But I do need it to scale with the image. And I'd like it to be a little bigger. Now if I take this and I make another copy here and another copy here, I'd like them to be in the center, so I'm going to move them there. And I'm going to group these, and then I'm going to rotate them around the center. So I'm going to put the other one back paste the other one back that I had first. And the reason I'm using this shape is just to save time rather than spend a while drawing something. And I'm going to make this bigger. And I'm going to copy it here and make it, keep it that size. I'm going to select all three of these and I'm going to group them. And then that I can put in the center, which I know it didn't look right. Now I'm going to rotate them. So you get the idea. And these though, let's do something else. Let's take, instead of that, let's make a drop. And I'm gonna group these again. And rotate them around the center. I am in the center. Let's make sure. Yes. And rotate them. So I actually don't like these. I'm going to take away these. Or maybe I'll keep them, but I don't like them yellow. Maybe I don't think there's enough contrast between the yellow and the white. So what if they were blue? Yeah, I like that better. The white can be in the orange and the red, but the blue, the yellow and the white on the yellow really doesn't do anything for me. So I'm going to take this, copy paste it so I can just get that shape because I like the size. I'm going to put it here and I'm going to rotate it to kind of go with that. Now I'm going to make it blue and I'm going to copy it and put it here. Now these have to be centered, so, and good guess they are. I'm going to group them and then I'm going to make a copy of them and I'm going to put this here. Okay, let's make sure that's in the center. The two of them should be centered, which they are now. And I'm going to copy them again up here. And now I'm going to get rid of this one for a moment and rotate this a little bit more. And I'm going to go up here, here, and make that one a little bigger. And I copy it again and make it a little bigger. I'm going to copy it up here and make this, try to get it straight. So if I put the center there and rotate it, I can get it, line it up again. I'm going to make this one just a little bigger again. And now I'm going to take this, this, and this, and I'm going to group them. I'm going to copy them as I move them, and I'm going to try to get them here and here symmetrical. So if I move this in the center, then they'll all both be centered. So now I'm going to group these, take these, group the whole lot, and move them to the center. And I'm gonna rotate the whole thing. So it's not my best work, but it gives you an idea of how you can build something. Creativity is something we all have a capacity for, whether you consider yourself an artist or not. It's something we all can do. Picasso said that every child was born an artist. The trick is to remain one as you grow up, and there I think a lot of people don't give themselves an opportunity to explore this. Maybe it has to do with time or means, but everybody should try to pursue something. I think it's really fulfilling. It's really hard to describe too, because when you're sitting down and drawing or painting or playing music, you're listening to an inner voice, you're communicating with your spirit, you're finding expression to things that you necessarily can't or don't need to put into words. Anyway, it's something to think about. Give yourself a chance. Take a risk. Do it. Yeah, so there we are. I hope this video has been helpful in giving you an understanding about how I work and who I am. I know there's a lot more I could explain, but I think this is okay for an introduction. I'm willing to give more make more videos if you like. If you have any questions, if you leave them in the comments, I'll try to answer, or send me a message. So thanks for watching. Again, I hope this has been helpful, and maybe we'll see you later. Okay, bye-bye.